The suitcase hit the porch with a thud that told me everything I needed to know. Maren stood there, keys still jingling in her hand, face pale as winter morning. She'd been gone 3 days on what she called a work retreat with my brother Porter. The perfume wafting from her clothes wasn't the vanilla stuff she usually wore. "How was the conference?" I asked, not looking up from the carburetor I was rebuilding on my workbench. The garage door was open, letting in the October chill that rolled off the harbor. Our neighborhood had seen better decades. Most of the houses needed paint, and half the driveways were cracked concrete held together by weeds and stubbornness. "Fine. Productive." Her voice had that careful tone she used when she was measuring every word. "Porter sends his regards." I almost laughed. Porter sending regards was like a shark sending birthday wishes. My younger brother had charm in spades, but the moral compass of a broken weather vane. He'd been sniffing around Maren ever since she made partner at Kellerman and Associates 2 years ago. Success always attracted Porter like flies to honey. "That's nice of him." I wiped my hands on an old rag, finally looking at her. Maren was still beautiful at 38, with a kind of sharp intelligence that could cut glass when she was cross-examining witnesses. Right now, she looked like someone who'd been caught shoplifting. "How's his new apartment working out?" "I wouldn't know. We stayed at the conference hotel." The lie came so easily I almost admired it. Porter had been posting Instagram stories from his waterfront condo all weekend. I'd checked. The background in his photos matched the view from Maren's work retreat selfies perfectly. She must have thought I was too stupid to notice. Maybe I had been for a while, but stupid and observant aren't mutually exclusive. "I need to shower," she said, grabbing her suitcase. "Long drive." I watched her hurry inside, noting how she avoided eye contact. 20 years of marriage teaches you to read the signs. The way she touched her neck when nervous. How she organized her purse when she was hiding something. The particular silence that meant she was planning her next move. My phone buzzed. Porter's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, brother. How's the grease monkey business?" "Can't complain. Thanks for keeping Maren company at her conference." A pause. Just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. "Yeah. Well, family helps family, right? Listen, I was thinking we should all get together soon. Maybe this weekend?" "Sure. I'll cook." I kept my voice level, friendly even. "Maren loves your stories about the old neighborhood." After hanging up, I sat in the garage for another hour, thinking. The smart play was to gather evidence before making accusations. Maren was a lawyer. She'd demand proof, not suspicions. And Porter had been sliding by on charm and family loyalty his whole life. Time to see how that worked out when the stakes got real. The next morning, I drove to the harbor before dawn. My business partner Jake was already at our marine repair shop, coffee in hand, squinting at invoices under the fluorescent lights. "You look like someone ran over your dog," he said. "Worse, someone ran over my marriage." Jake had been divorced twice. He understood the particular exhaustion that comes from pretending everything's normal when your world's falling apart. "You sure?" Sure enough, I poured coffee from the pot that had been brewing since the Clinton administration. "I need some time to handle personal stuff. Can you cover the Hendricks job?" "Course. Take what you need." That's the thing about good friends. They don't ask questions when you're clearly drowning. They just throw you a rope and worry about explanations later. I spent the day making phone calls. First to my lawyer, then to my accountant. Quiet conversations about asset protection and documentation. By afternoon, I had a plan forming. Nothing illegal, nothing violent. Just consequences with compound interest. Maren came home that evening with takeout Chinese and a guilty smile. "Thought we could have a nice dinner. Talk about things." "Things?" "Us, the future. I know I've been distant lately." We ate in the dining room like civilized people. She talked about her cases, the partnership track, her ambitions for the firm. I listened and nodded and watched her perform the role of devoted wife. She was good at it. I'd give her that. "I was thinking," she said over fortune cookies, "maybe we should take a vacation, just the two of us. Remember how we used to drive up to Maine? That sounds nice. When?" "Soon, after I wrap up the Morrison case." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The Morrison case had been settled 3 weeks ago. I'd seen the paperwork on her desk. But I just smiled and cracked open my fortune cookie. The little slip of paper read, "Truth has a way of surfacing." Perfect. After dinner, while Maren was in the shower, I went through her purse. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never heard of. A hotel key card she'd forgotten to throw away. and tucked behind her driver's license, a folded piece of paper with Porter's handwriting. Can't wait for next time. You're incredible. I photographed everything with my phone, then put it all back exactly where I'd found it. Evidence first, confrontation later. That was the smart play. That night, lying in bed next to my wife, I stared at the ceiling and planned my next move. Maren breathed softly beside me, probably dreaming about her bright future with my charming brother. She had no idea the ground was already shifting under her feet. Tomorrow, I'd start applying pressure, gentle at first, then increasing until something cracked. I'd learned patience from 20 years of fixing engines. Sometimes you had to take things apart completely before you could see what was really broken. And this marriage was definitely broken. The envelope arrived on Thursday morning, addressed to Porter Kellor in care of our address. I recognized the lab's return address immediately. Harbor Medical Testing, where I'd gotten my physical last month. The envelope was thin, official, and marked confidential medical results. Interesting timing. I held it up to the light but couldn't make out the contents. No matter. I had a pretty good idea what medical tests Porter might need after his recent conference activities. The thought made my stomach turn, but it also gave me leverage. When Maren came down for coffee, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the envelope beside my newspaper. "This came for Porter," I said casually. "Looks important." Her face went white. Actually white, like someone had drained her completely. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Why would Porter get mail here?" "Good question. Maybe you should ask him." She reached for the envelope, but I was faster. "Nah, I'll drop it off at his place later. Wouldn't want him to miss something important from a medical lab." The coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the tile floor. Hot coffee splashed everywhere, and she just stood there staring at the mess. "Clumsy," I said, getting up to grab paper towels. "You seem nervous, honey. Everything okay?" "I'm fine, just tired." "Maybe you should see a doctor. Get some tests run. Make sure everything's healthy." She fled upstairs without another word. I cleaned up the coffee and listened to her pacing in our bedroom, then the muffled sound of her voice on the phone. Probably calling Porter, warning him about the envelope. Let them panic. Panic made people make mistakes. I drove to Porter's condo that afternoon, but not to deliver mail. I parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, Maren's BMW pulled up 20 minutes later. She hurried inside, staying for exactly 47 minutes before rushing out looking even more frantic than before. Time to turn up the heat. That evening, I cornered Porter at Mickey's bar, his usual Thursday night hangout. He was shooting pool with some guys from his construction crew, beer in hand, laughing too loud at his own jokes, the picture of a man without a care in the world. "Porter, buy you a drink?" He turned, and I saw the flicker of guilt before he covered it with his trademark grin. "Brent, what brings you to this fine establishment?" "Brotherly love, and I have something for you." I pulled out the envelope, watching his face carefully. The grin faltered. "What's that?" "Your mail. Came to my house by mistake." I held it out, but he didn't take it. "Aren't you curious what's inside?" "Probably nothing important." "Medical lab results usually are." I tapped the envelope against my palm. "Want me to open it for you? Save you the trouble?" "No." He grabbed the envelope, stuffing it into his jacket pocket. "Thanks. Probably just routine stuff." "Sure. Routine." I ordered a beer, settling onto the bar stool next to him. "So, how was Maren's conference? She said you were a big help." Porter's hand shook slightly as he raised his beer. "Yeah, just being supportive. Family stuff." "Family's important. Trust, loyalty, all that." I took a long drink, watching him squirm. "Speaking of which, you should probably get that envelope checked out. Health is nothing to mess with." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just saying. Some test results you want to share with people who might be affected. Common courtesy." Porter went pale. He mumbled something about needing to leave and practically ran out of the bar. I finished my beer slowly, savoring the taste of progress. The next morning, Maren was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note about early meetings and wouldn't be home until late. Running scared, most likely. Good. Fear was a useful tool when applied correctly. I spent the day making more phone calls. To our insurance company, asking about coverage changes. To our bank, inquiring about account access procedures. To our daughter Emma's college, checking on tuition payment schedules. All innocent questions that would create a paper trail of my sudden interest in our finances. Jake found me in the office that afternoon, surrounded by paperwork. "You planning to become an accountant?" "Just getting organized, making sure all our ducks are in a row." "Your ducks or your wife's?" "Same thing, right? Community property and all that." I looked up at him. "Unless someone's planning to change that arrangement." Jake whistled low. You're really doing this. Doing what? Playing chess while they're playing checkers. I don't know what you mean. But I did know, and so did he. The thing about small towns is that secrets don't stay secret long, especially when people start asking the right questions in the right places. That evening, Marin came home with flowers and wine, wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Guilt presents and seduction clothes, the classic cheater's playbook. I thought we could have a romantic dinner, she said, kissing my cheek. Like old times. That sounds perfect. I'll cook. We played house for 3 hours. She complimented my chicken parmesan, asked about my day, laughed at my jokes. It was a beautiful performance. Almost convincing if you didn't know she was probably calculating how much alimony she could squeeze out of me. Over dessert, I dropped the hammer. I ran into Dr. Martinez today. He mentioned you'd called about getting some tests done. She froze with the fork halfway to her mouth. What kind of tests? He didn't say, just mentioned you seemed concerned about exposure to something. Everything okay? It's probably nothing. Just being cautious. Cautious about what? Work stuff. There was an incident at the office. Possible contamination issue. Another lie. Smooth as silk. She was good at this. Too bad for her, I was getting better. Well, better safe than sorry. When's your appointment? Monday morning. Want me to drive you? Moral support? The terror in her eyes was almost worth 20 years of marriage. Almost. No, that's okay. Tina's coming with me. Tina Drummond, her best friend since high school. Sweet little elementary school teacher who baked cookies for charity events and organized the neighborhood book club. If Tina was involved, this was bigger than just an affair. That's nice of her. Give her my regards. After Marin went to bed, I sat in my garage workshop thinking. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they made was uglier than I'd expected. This wasn't just about my wife stepping out with my brother. There were other players involved, other motivations. Time to find out exactly how deep this went. Monday morning came with the kind of gray drizzle that makes everything look defeated. I watched from my truck as Marin and Tina drove off to the medical center, both of them looking like they were headed to a funeral. In a way, maybe they were. I gave them a 10-minute head start, then followed. Harbor Medical Center was one of those modern buildings that tried too hard to look friendly, all glass and curved corners and inspirational quotes on the walls. I parked where I could see the entrance and waited. They emerged 45 minutes later. Marin was crying, and Tina had her arm around her shoulders, whispering urgently. Whatever the test results were, they weren't good news. For them. I followed at a distance as they drove to the Sunrise Diner on Harbor Street. Through the window, I watched them huddle in a corner booth, Marin gesturing frantically while Tina took notes on a napkin, planning damage control, most likely. My phone rang, Marin's name on the screen. Hey, honey, how'd the appointment go? Fine, just routine stuff. Her voice was thick with tears she was trying to hide. I'm having lunch with Tina, then I'll be home. Take your time. I'm working on the Henderson boat engine anyway. After hanging up, I drove to Porter's condo. His Mustang was in the parking lot, but he didn't answer when I knocked. Either hiding or not home. I left a note under his door. Call me. We need to talk. Brent. Then I went to see Lyle. Lyle's boxing gym occupied the bottom floor of a brick building that had seen better decades. The smell of sweat, leather, and determination hit you the moment you walked in. Lyle himself was behind the counter, reading a newspaper through glasses held together with electrical tape. Brent, didn't expect to see you today. Needed to hit something. Lyle looked up from his paper, studying my face. 30 years of training fighters had taught him to read people's moods like weather patterns. Heavy bags open, gloves are in the usual spot. I wrapped my hands and went to work on the bag, letting muscle memory take over. Jab, cross, hook. The rhythm was hypnotic, meditative. With each punch, I imagined Porter's smug face, Marin's lies, the whole elaborate deception they'd built around me. You're dropping your right hand, Lyle called out. Keep your guard up. Good advice for boxing, better advice for life. After an hour, I was drenched in sweat but thinking clearly. Lyle handed me a towel and a bottle of water. Feel better? Getting there. Want to talk about it? My wife's having an affair with my brother. Lyle nodded like I'd told him the weather forecast. That's rough. What are you going to do about it? Make them regret it. Violence won't solve anything, son. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about consequences. Lyle studied me for a long moment. Consequences can be just as dangerous as violence, sometimes more so. Sometimes that's the point. When I got home, Marin's car was in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, staring out the window with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. "How was lunch with Tina?" She jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Fine, we just caught up. She's a good friend, always has been." I opened the refrigerator, pretending to look for something. "Remember when she used to work for me, before she became a teacher?" Marin's reflection in the window went rigid. That was a long time ago. 3 years. Not that long. I closed the refrigerator, turning to face her. I always felt bad about having to let her go. Budget cuts, nothing personal. She understood. Did she? Because I always got the impression she blamed me, like maybe she thought I could have found another way. I don't know what she thought. But I could see in her face that she did know. Tina had blamed me, and she'd been carrying that grudge for 3 years. Long enough to plan something elaborate. Long enough to involve my wife and brother in whatever revenge she'd cooked up. "Anyway," I said, heading for the stairs, "I'm sure she's moved on. People usually do." That evening, I called Emma at college. My daughter was a junior at State, studying business with plans to take over the world by 30. She got her ambition from Marin and her stubborn streak from me, a dangerous combination. "Dad, what's up? Just checking in. How are classes?" "Brutal but manageable. Professor Williams is trying to destroy us with his corporate finance assignments." "You'll figure it out. You always do." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "Hey, has your mom mentioned anything about changes? At home, I mean?" "Changes like what?" "I don't know. Just seems like she's been stressed lately." "She's always stressed. Comes with being a lawyer, right?" "Right." I didn't want to involve Emma in this mess, but I needed to know if Marin had been preparing her for what was coming. "Listen, kiddo, if anything weird happens at home, you can always call me directly, okay?" "Dad, you're being strange. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. Just want you to know I'm here if you need anything." After hanging up, I sat in my workshop, planning the next phase. Marin and Porter thought they were being clever, but they were amateurs playing against someone who'd been fixing broken things for 20 years. The key was patience. Apply pressure gradually until the weak points revealed themselves. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email." The message contained a single photo attachment. Marin and Porter at the Ocean View Motel, kissing in the parking lot. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the day before her supposed work conference. But what caught my attention was the reflection in the motel office window. Tina Drummond, standing behind the counter with a satisfied smile. She worked there part-time during the summer, I remembered, had access to rooms, schedules, privacy. This wasn't just an affair, it was a setup, and I was starting to understand exactly what they were setting me up for. The photo came with a message. "Thought you should know. A friend." I stared at the image for a long time, memorizing every detail. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. "Document this. Timestamp everything. More to follow." Game on. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. I was rebuilding a transmission in my garage when 2 cars pulled into the driveway. Marin's BMW, followed by Porter's Mustang. They parked side by side like they were making a statement. Marin got out first, her lawyer face firmly in place. Porter followed, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Behind them, Tina emerged from the passenger seat of Marin's car. The whole gang was here. "Brent, we need to talk," Marin announced, walking into my garage like she owned it. Which technically she half did. "Sure, always happy to chat with family." I wiped my hands on a rag, not bothering to hide my amusement. "What's on your minds?" Porter shifted uncomfortably. "Look, brother, there's been some misunderstandings lately." "Misunderstandings?" "About Marin and me. People are talking, making assumptions." "What kind of assumptions?" Marin stepped forward. "The kind that could hurt all of us, professionally, personally. We think it's best if we clear the air." I looked at Tina, who was standing quietly by the door, watching everything with sharp eyes. "And you're here because?" "Moral support," she said sweetly. "Marin's my best friend." "Of course she is." I set down my tools, giving them my full attention. "So what exactly are we clearing up?" Marin launched into what was obviously a rehearsed speech about boundaries, family relationships, and the importance of trust. Porter nodded along like a bobblehead, occasionally adding phrases like "exactly" and "that's right." Tina just watched, her expression unreadable. It was a beautiful performance. They'd covered all the bases, denied the affair without actually denying it, acknowledged the appearance of impropriety while claiming innocence, and positioned themselves as the victims of malicious gossip. If I hadn't seen the evidence myself, I might have been convinced. "So let me get this straight," I said when they finished. You're worried about rumors, so you came here together to tell me there's nothing to worry about? Exactly, Porter said, relief evident in his voice. And the medical tests? Marin's composure cracked slightly. What medical tests? The ones you had done yesterday. The ones that made you cry at the diner. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Just like you know about the Ocean View Motel and Porter's test results and whatever plan you three have been cooking up. The silence that followed was beautiful. I could practically hear their minds racing, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. Tina spoke first. Brent, I think you're letting your imagination run away with you. Am I? Tell me, Tina, do you still work at the Ocean View during summers? Her face went pale. Sometimes. Part-time. Convenient. Easy to arrange private meetings, I bet. Porter found his voice. You're way out of line, Brent. Am I? Then explain this. I pulled out my phone, showing them the photo from the anonymous sender. All three of them stared at the screen like I'd shown them their own obituaries. Where did you get that? Marin whispered. Does it matter? What matters is what it shows. My wife, my brother, and my former employee conspiring behind my back. It's not what it looks like, Porter said weakly. Really? Because it looks like you've been planning something for a while. The affair was just the opening move, wasn't it? Tina stepped forward, and for the first time, I saw the real person behind the sweet teacher facade. You always were too smart for your own good, Brent. Smart enough to see this coming, just not smart enough to stop it sooner. There's nothing to stop, Marin said, but her voice lacked conviction. Sure there is. The question is, what exactly were you planning? Divorce papers citing irreconcilable differences? Maybe some claims about my mental state, my temper? Paint me as the unstable husband who couldn't handle his wife's success? The look that passed between them told me I was close to the truth. And then what? Porter swoops in to comfort the grieving widow. Sorry, ex-wife. Tina provides character witnesses about what a difficult person I am to work with. Very neat, very thorough. You're paranoid, Marin said, but she was backing toward the door. Maybe, but paranoid people sometimes see things clearly. I pocketed my phone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my house, all of you, and then you're going to think very carefully about your next moves. This is my house too, Marin said. For now, but things change. Sometimes faster than people expect. After they left, I sat in my garage for a long time, thinking. The confrontation had confirmed my suspicions, but also revealed something else. They were desperate. Desperate people made mistakes, and I intended to be ready when they did. That afternoon, I drove to the bank and made some adjustments to our accounts. Nothing illegal, just exercising my rights as a joint account holder. I also stopped by my lawyer's office to discuss asset protection strategies and documentation requirements for divorce proceedings. You're sure about this? David Martinez asked. He'd been my lawyer for 10 years, handling everything from business contracts to my will. I'm sure they're planning something. I want to be ready. What about your daughter? Emma's in college. She'll be fine once the dust settles. And your business? That's mine. Started it before the marriage, built it with my own hands. Marin never had any involvement. David nodded, making notes. We'll need documentation, financial records, communication logs, evidence of infidelity. I'm working on it. That evening, Marin came home late, claiming she'd been at the office. She moved around the house like she was walking on eggshells, jumping every time I spoke to her. How was work? I asked over dinner. Busy. The Morrison appeal is taking more time than expected. Another lie. The Morrison case was closed, but I just nodded and passed the salt. I was thinking, she said carefully, maybe we should consider counseling, work through some of our communication issues. What kind of issues? Just, we seem to be having trouble understanding each other lately. I understand you perfectly, Marin. Better than you think. She went to bed early, claiming a headache. I stayed up late in my workshop, planning the next phase of my campaign. They'd shown their hand today, revealed their desperation. Now it was time to apply real pressure and see what broke first. Outside, the October wind rattled the windows, carrying the smell of winter from the harbor. Change was coming, whether they were ready for it or not. 3 days later, I put my plan into motion. It started with a simple phone call to Harbor Medical Center. This is Brent Kellor. I need to schedule some tests. Comprehensive screening, including communicable diseases. The appointment was set for Friday morning. I made sure to mention it to Marin at breakfast, watching her face go through several shades of pale. Why do you need tests? She asked, her coffee cup trembling in her hands. Just being cautious. After your scare the other day, I figured I should get checked out too. Make sure I haven't been exposed to anything. Exposed to what? Whatever had you so worried? Better safe than sorry, right? She excused herself and went upstairs. Within minutes, I heard her on the phone, voice urgent but too quiet to make out words. Calling Porter, most likely, or Tina. Maybe both. That afternoon, I drove to the Ocean View Motel. Tina was behind the desk, looking surprised to see me. Brent, what brings you here? Nostalgia. This place holds some interesting memories, doesn't it? Her smile faltered. I'm not sure what you mean. Room 12. Last Tuesday afternoon. Ring any bells? I think you should leave. Probably. But first, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For the photo. Very thoughtful of you to document everything so clearly. Tina's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. The anonymous tip, the perfectly timed shot, the helpful camera angle. You wanted me to know, didn't you? Part of the plan? There's no plan. Of course there is. There's always been a plan. Ever since I had to let you go from the shop. This is payback, isn't it? Destroy my marriage, ruin my reputation, maybe get me to do something stupid so you can paint me as the villain. Tina straightened up, and I saw the real person behind the mask again. You destroyed my life. I loved that job. I know, and I'm sorry it had to end. But business is business. Easy for you to say. You kept your livelihood. And now you want to take mine. Fair enough. But you picked the wrong targets. Did I? Marin's not as strong as you think, and Porter's not as smart. They'll crack under pressure, and when they do, they'll point fingers. Probably at you. I left her standing behind the desk, looking shaken. Phase 1 complete. That evening, I cooked dinner for Marin and myself, her favorite meal, complete with wine and candles. She was suspicious, but played along, probably thinking I was trying to salvage our marriage. Over dessert, I made my move. I've been thinking about what you said, about counseling. Really? Really. In fact, I've arranged something special. A weekend retreat, just for family. You, me, Porter, even Tina if she wants to come. Tina? Why would Tina come to marriage counseling? Because she's part of this family now, isn't she? Besides, it's not exactly counseling. More like a family meeting. Clear the air, get everything out in the open. Marin looked like she wanted to run. I don't think that's a good idea. I do. In fact, I insist. I've already rented a cabin on Crater Lake for this weekend. Booked it under Porter's name, figured he'd appreciate the gesture. Brent, I really don't think... It's not a request, Marin. It's happening. Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation in divorce court? The threat hung in the air between us. She understood perfectly. Show up for the family meeting or face the consequences of her choices in a much more public forum. Fine, she said quietly. This weekend. Friday morning, I went for my medical tests. Clean bill of health, as expected. I made sure to get copies of everything, including the negative results for all communicable diseases. Evidence for later. That afternoon, I drove to the cabin. It was perfect for my purposes, isolated, private, with excellent cell phone reception and multiple exits. I spent the evening setting up, making sure everything would be ready for tomorrow's performance. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly. Marin, Porter, and Tina showed up together, looking like they were attending their own execution. Maybe they were. Welcome to family therapy, I said, ushering them inside. Make yourselves comfortable. The cabin was rustic but well-appointed, with a large living room dominated by a stone fireplace. I'd arranged the furniture in a circle, like a support group meeting. This is ridiculous, Porter muttered, but he sat down anyway. Is it? I think it's overdue. I took my seat, completing the circle. So, let's start with honesty. Who wants to go first? Silence. No volunteers? Okay, I'll start. I pulled out my phone, opening the photo gallery. Let's talk about this picture. I showed them the motel photo again, watching their faces. Tina, you took this, didn't you? Part of your documentation project? I don't have to answer that. You don't, but your silence is an answer itself. I swiped to the next photo, Porter's medical test envelope. And this? What were you so worried about, Porter? That's private medical information. Not when it affects my wife's health, or mine. I pulled out my own test results, holding them up. Clean bill of health, by the way. No communicable diseases, no exposure to anything dangerous. Funny how that works. Marin was crying now, quiet tears that she wiped away with the back of her hand. Here's what I think happened, I continued. Tina approached you, Marin. Probably started as innocent venting about your marriage, right? Poor Brent doesn't understand you, doesn't appreciate your success. And Tina was such a good listener. Tina's jaw was clenched tight, but she didn't deny it. Then Porter entered the picture. Charming Porter, who always had a thing for successful women. Tina probably encouraged that too. Maybe even facilitated meetings, provided locations. "Stop," Marin whispered. "Why? We're just getting to the good part. The plan. Make me look unstable, unreasonable, maybe even dangerous. Document everything. Build a case for why poor Marin had no choice but to leave her increasingly erratic husband." Porter stood up. "That's enough. Sit down." Something in my voice made him comply. Maybe it was the 20 years of frustration finally finding its voice. The affair was just the beginning, wasn't it? You needed me to find out, needed me to react badly, but I disappointed you. Instead of flying into a rage, I gathered evidence. Instead of making threats, I made plans. "What plans?" Tina asked, speaking for the first time since we'd started. I smiled. "Well, for starters, I've documented everything. The affair, the conspiracy, the attempted manipulation. My lawyer has copies of all the evidence, including some interesting financial records showing how you've been coordinating your activities." That was a bluff, but their faces told me I was close to the truth. "I've also made some adjustments to our living situation. Marin, you'll find that your access to our joint accounts has been temporarily suspended pending a full audit. Porter, your employer received an anonymous tip about some irregularities in your work schedule. Might want to check on that." Porter pulled out his phone, frantically checking messages. From his expression, I'd guessed correctly about his workplace problems. "And Tina, the school board received a complaint about inappropriate use of school resources for personal vendettas. Might affect your tenure review." Another bluff, but effective. Tina looked like she wanted to strangle me. "You can't do this," Marin said. "I already have. See, that's the thing about playing games with someone who fixes things for a living. I understand how systems work, how they break, and how to repair them when necessary." I stood up, walking to the window. The lake stretched out below us, gray and choppy under the cloudy sky. "Here's what happens next. You three are going to walk away from each other and from me. Marin, you'll file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. No alimony claims, no asset disputes. Porter, you'll find a new job in a different town. Tina, you'll focus on your teaching career and forget about revenge schemes." "And if we don't?" Porter asked. "Then we do this the hard way. Public trials, media attention, professional consequences. Your choice." The silence stretched out for several minutes. Finally, Marin spoke. "I never meant for it to go this far. But it did, and now we all have to live with the consequences." One by one, they filed out of the cabin. No dramatic confrontations, no final speeches, just three people who'd overplayed their hand walking away from the wreckage of their scheme. I stood at the window, watching their cars disappear down the mountain road. 20 years of marriage, gone. A brother I'd never trust again, a friendship that had curdled into something ugly. But I was still standing. Battered, maybe, but not broken. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, drumming against the cabin's metal roof. I poured myself a drink and settled into a chair by the fire, finally allowing myself to feel the weight of what had happened. Tomorrow, I'd drive back to town and start rebuilding. New routines, new relationships, maybe even a new perspective on what family really meant. Tonight, though, I'd sit here and listen to the rain, grateful for the silence and the peace that came with finally knowing the truth. The fire crackled, sending shadows dancing across the cabin walls. Outside, the storm raged on, washing the mountain clean.